I like what's on the other side of hard conversations.
There was two sides to the situation, but I basically just was like, hey, this is the type of customer I want to keep. There are other customers where they're just not paying and they're always bad payers. And if they're generally great payers and they lots of service calls and RMR and all the things, then you should probably consider figuring out what you need to do to keep them.
The marriage advice I've gotten several times, like you never badmouth your spouse in front of others, like throwing your team members under the bus versus being held accountable for something that you actually, because we are not perfect, actually, believe it or not. And also to the customer, like that's a bad look too. Welcome to Entry and Exit. My name is Stephen Olmon, and I also have Collin Trimble with me, who is my business partner at Alarm Masters and also my co-host here at Entry and Exit. And today we're talking about something really fun. How to handle difficult customers. And
we're probably the only ones that actually have difficult customers.
Yeah, this is probably not relevant to any of you because all of your customers are perfect. Everyone's super nice. Everyone pays. It's always their fault. And so this is just us sharing our individual unique experience of having hard customers.
Yeah, this is a fun one. I've learned a lot about this from our director of customer success, who's done a really good job of understanding how to engage with customers. And it is really, really easy to take it personally when you are sideways with a customer, because a lot of times your business feels like an extension of you. So an attack on your business feels like an attack on you, and you have to separate that. That's especially true when people are refusing to pay. And that feels really tough and really hard. And so the first thing you have to do, like just top line, right? Like, first of all, we don't have this 100% nailed. This is just our experience. And we've dealt with some kind of tough situations recently, and we felt like it would be kind of relevant to talk through what we've learned over the last, 3.5 years on this. And, the one thing that I learned this in all of sales, but I've really learned this since owning this business and other businesses that I've owned where I've had challenging customers, is you've got to separate your business from you. That's the first thing you have to do. You have to separate the emotional side of it. If they're emotional, you cannot meet it with emotion, or you will not be successful. And honestly, I feel like, Stephen, one of your gifts is having really hard conversations and staying really calm in emotional situations. And you could probably speak to that better than I could, because that's not a gift of mine at all.
I like what's on the other side of hard conversations. And you're not going to have a good outcome on the other side of that if you're trying to match their level of anger or frustration. And to your point, you cannot take business conflict personal. And so if you take this business-related tension or conflict with another human being and you start to internalize that personally, you're going to be a mess. Like, that's never, talk about not scaling. I mean, like you can't absorb that amount of internal turmoil, and so it doesn't mean you have to numb yourself out from it and be apathetic, but you cannot take it personally. That doesn't mean that you don't stand up for your business or you don't hold the line, so I like what's on the other side of it, right? Hopefully the other side of it is a clear resolution that is ideally kind of in the middle. It's kind of like in you hear a lot in M&A world, like if you sell or buy a business, it's probably a good deal if both sides leave a little unhappy. Because both, there was some trade-offs, right? And similar in dealing with a difficult client, you may not be so satisfied. Maybe you had to kind of give a little in one area, but so did they. And in our world, given how much we're focused on RMR and kind of recurring revenue, ideally you retain that customer and you smoothed out that relationship so you can keep working together. So if you can have the long-term in mind when dealing with a short-term conflict, that's going to be kind of the best of both worlds.
I'll tell you one thing that I've learned a lot is when customers are really hot and they're demanding to talk to somebody, right now, today, call me back. I have found that if you can acknowledge, like send them an email or pass a message like, hey, we're gonna get you to talk to somebody. It's not gonna be resolved until Tuesday. If you can get a few days of space between you and the issue, it usually resolves a lot easier because the emotions are gone and it's just like, I'm tired of
Yeah.
dealing with this. I don't want to give this any more emotional energy. I just want to move on from it. And I think that it seems counterintuitive, like, well, it feels like you're just kicking the can down the road or you're going to upset the customer more. Generally not. As long as you're showing them that you're working on it, you're not ignoring them.
Right.
Generally, the outcome is better for us. Now, that may be different for other people. And we have a unique scenario because, we're sort of a classic alarm company. So we do a lot of service, a lot of RMR. We've got over 5,000 customers, monitored customers paying us recurring revenue and probably double that from a service perspective. So we we have a lot of different customers and a lot of different interactions. Another thing I think you really need to do is you need to do your homework before you have the call, because if you go in there just operating with the very small slice of what you're getting from your team or whatever, you're gonna not have the right decision making authority. So like we had a customer that came in extremely hot a couple weeks ago, uh, messaged me directly, and they actually found my number online because I post my personal cell phone number on our website. So I don't get a lot of people that hit me up on it very often, but
Yeah.
I do occasionally. And they came through and they were really frustrated. And it seemed like super unreasonable. Like the case notes that I was looking at, I was like, this guy is like crazy. And then I went back and looked at his history. I was like, oh my gosh, this person has been a customer for 34 years. They're on auto pay. They've never requested or ever had a single case. And since we've been on Salesforce, I was like, this is like the most low maintenance customer ever. This is clearly out of character for them. We get on
Right.
with them, and there was two sides to the situation, but I basically just was like, hey, this is the type of customer I want to keep. So we gave him a credit, a big one, and I apologized. And the team was like, hey, why? Like, that wasn't really our fault. It's like, yeah, I hear you. But like, this is the type of customer we want to keep. There are other customers
Yeah.
where they're just not paying and they're always bad payers. I always hold the line. I always hold the line because I don't want the customer if they're going to be a bad payer. Just don't want them. So we hold the line hard on those type of situations. So I think going in with some context and history, because you ultimately need to make a decision before you get on that phone call and you need to stick to it. Don't change it just because you got on the call and they start saying nasty things. You really need to stick to the situation and say, hey, is this the type of customer I want? And if they're generally great payers and they lots of service calls and RMR and all the things, then you should probably consider figuring out what you need to do to keep them.
Yep. I agree. Another element that can be a play here in dealing with difficult customers where maybe your team, maybe they are in the wrong to some degree. It's kind of like the marriage advice I've gotten several times, like you never badmouth your spouse in
Mm-hmm.
front of others.
Yeah.
Like that's just not an option. Like that's never going to lead to a better marriage.
Yeah.
And so in the same way, there's a difference between bad mouthing or kind of throwing your team members under the
Mm-hmm.
bus versus being held accountable for something that you actually, because we are not perfect,
Yeah.
actually, believe it or
Yeah.
not. We have made mistakes
Yeah.
in the past.
I mean,
And
maybe one or
so,
two.
yeah, like I think two and a half.
Yeah.
And so, um, if your team has actually been part of the problem, and so they are really justified in their frustration, I think it's fine to acknowledge that. Hey, you know what? I've kind of gotten all the facts here, and based on what you're saying, I talked to my team. Like we missed this. Like
Oh
we
yeah.
actually did whiff
Totally
on
own.
this, and we want to own that. We want to be accountable.
Yeah.
That is different than, oh, man. That guy. I have to deal with him all the time. He
Yeah.
sucks. He's such a. That is not okay because that kills your rapport and reputation with your team if that ever gets back to them,
Mm-hmm.
and also to the customer. Like that's a bad look too.
Yeah.
And so that's something it can be a temptation in the midst of conflict to blame
Oh,
others and
I'll go
be
further than
quick
that.
to,
I don't let our team talk bad about our customers. So it's super common when we started. It's like, oh, that's, Miss Karen calling in. Oh my God, this lady's a handful. Get ready, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, we don't do that. We don't gossip about our customers. Because if you do
Yeah.
that, you're just going in with an experience. You cannot deliver a good experience. If you're sitting there gossiping about the person in advance, like we have a no gossip rule internally. So you cannot talk to me about another employee here. Unless it's a manager talking about their specific employee in like a one-on-one type of situation. And that also applies about our customers. We do not gossip. We do not complain about our customers. And if we feel like we need to, and they're like a vampire of time and effort, then we consider offlining them and, firing them as a customer. And we have done that many times.
Right.
It's not worth the time and effort for us to put it in. But, you've got to find a way to eliminate gossip culture internally to go into that interaction. I don't know. That's hard to do. And it's hard to police also, but you got to lead by example, I think.
Yeah. And a lot of things that you just talked about, and really kind of this whole podcast is you have to establish your own internal standards for how you're going to handle conflict with customers. There's different types of, is this some really large install and we're behind? Like that's a different type of conflict than a residential customer that's a non-payer,
right?
So you kind of have to think through the different standards that you're going to set for how you're going to handle different situations. I really like the example of a really long-term customer that's never been a problem. Yeah. So it's like, hey, we're going to extend more grace in that scenario. Yeah. That's how we're going to operate. Yeah. And also just internal comms and all that. So I feel like we bring this word up so often, which is intentionality. Yeah. Like you have to be very intentional in order to achieve regular positive outcomes related to these scenarios.
Yeah. If I had to leave everybody with like two pieces of my perspective on this, the first one would be don't gossip about the customer. And the second thing would be gather 1000% of all the facts before you get on that phone call. And and that means not just of that situation, but of the customer themselves. And the only way to do that is if you have all of your customer information in a single place. Like, do you have a case handling system? Do you have a CRM tracking system? Do you have your field service system? Do you have invoicing? Do you have a complete picture? Are all those 5 different systems? And you're going to have a lot of work to do, but that's just the way it is. Like, go find out all the information about the customer so that you have a complete picture when you go in. I think it's really freaking hard to make a solid and sound judgment call if you're just operating on this one tiny little piece of information or situation that's going on.
That's right. And you also should gather likes and comments and drop them on top of our channel.
You should do that.
You should gather the share button or subscribe button, all sorts of buttons.
There's buttons and you should click.
And you should use them for us.
Yeah.
So got to catch them all. And if you don't, we're going to offline you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks and gig 'em.
Thanks.